My name is Desiree Akhavan. I'm an Iranian-American filmmaker based in New York. Appropriate Behaviour is my first feature-length film. It's a coming-of-age comedy about an Iranian-American bisexual woman who is trying to get over the first big relationship of her life and come out to her Iranian parents at the same time. So the film is incredibly, I like to say it's personal. It's definitely not autobiographical. I am bisexual and I am Iranian American, but the events, it was sort of an amalgamation of all the relationships I'd ever had and how I felt throughout all the breakups, trying to sort through that on screen. But the scenarios and also it's a comedy. So everything about it was shaped to be convenient for a 90-minute narrative. So, my parents aren't necessarily like that. The girlfriend's not like that. The only relationship that is really true to my life is the one with my parents. Not my parents, sorry. The one that's true to life is the one with my brother. I have a really funny pediatric urologist for a brother, and he is very, dark and harsh, and we have so much love for each other, but we only communicate it through insults. So that relationship was really true to my life. I always knew that if I was going to make a story about, a gay Annie Hall that was inspired by my own experiences, that I would make the character bisexual rather than lesbian. First off, because that's my experience of life. I'm not a lesbian, I'm bisexual, and it's a very different life experience. And then additionally, I'm really happy with the fact that it is about a bisexual because there's such little representation of bisexuality out there. And it meant a lot to me to have something out there beyond what there is now, which is usually like really promiscuous teenage girls trying to impress men to, hook up with women. I can't speak for Iranian LGBT community because I'm not a part of it. Bisexuality is taboo everywhere that I've been. And everything that I see, there's a real stigma against being in the gray area. And it's funny, I can kind of wrap my brain around why. It's very simple and straightforward to say you're gay. I can kind of understand, like, the way that I feel about an opposite sex is the way you feel about the same sex, and that's like clear cut. But there's this underlying implication of disingenuous intentions when someone is bisexual, because you're thinking you merely must have one preference. You must be lying to someone there. And that undertone is really cutting. And also there's no other lifestyle in which the way that you are treated by the world and your positioning in the world is entirely dependent on who you're having a romantic relationship with at the moment. So if I'm with a woman, I'm a lesbian, but if I'm dating a man, then I'm straight. There's very much an identity to being a lesbian and an identity to being a gay man and the rest of the world to being straight. But for bisexuality, it's very much a loner's club. And that's the interesting thing about it, is that it's kind of a choose your own adventure and you pave your own way. And in my experience, it's not that you don't fit into the gay community or any community the way that you would expect if you were one or the other. And it's funny, I have one bisexual close friend, and we find so many similarities, and we bond so much over the fact, like, it's not just that we're bisexual, it's like, it's a lifestyle thing. Over the years that I've known her, things have come up, and I find that there are things that there's a connection I feel to her that I don't feel to anyone else in my life, because she's the only bisexual in my life. And that kind of camaraderie that I think exists in the gay community, you can't feel that. And it's understandable. It's not making fun of the gay community. It's saying that their experience of life is very different from ours. And, I didn't grow up feeling like I was living a lie. I felt like I had crushes on boys and girls, and I just didn't act on the ones that I had on girls. And I didn't feel like I had a terrible secret or anything until I did have a terrible secret, and that was terrible. So, like, we experienced the same coming out process, but the other elements of identity there's a way to dress when you're gay. There's a way to talk. There's an identity. There's a group. There are places you go. As a bisexual, that kind of stuff doesn't exist for you. And I don't know if it should. I think I actually really like the independence and the free spirit of, I never found myself fitting into any groups. I never fit in with the other Iranians I knew. I never fit in with the other, you know, New Yorkers I knew. And I feel like you find your own people and you create your own community. And that's, to me, that is like the essence of bisexuality, is being able to find yourself relating to people all over the place and not just one identity or one mindset. I think of it now, I'm starting to think of it like a superpower. Like I have this magnificent ability to love both men and women, and that I've seen the world as a straight woman and I've seen the world as a lesbian. And it's fascinating. I actually think that kind of perspective is a really special one, and the capacity to love people based on their personalities and not their genitalia is pretty cool. Yes, I'm definitely out to my family. It would be hilarious. I'm laughing because it would be so funny if I had made this film and been like, surprise! Or like tried to hide it from them. Like, get off the internet for a while. No, I came out to my family a while ago, and they're really supportive of the film, and they've been my biggest advocates. Because I think they understand that the work that I do, I've been writing scripts since I was, 8 years old. I've always been writing, but never like stories. It was stories, but it was things for people to act out always. And they knew that about me. And my work was very inspired by my own life, with the exception of one spec script I wrote for the Brady Bunch, this really old TV show that I don't know why I was watching in the late 1980s, but they knew that I had to express myself this way. And then once I started making work about my romantic life, I think it was originally hard for them, but then they really came around, because what's so funny is that the work improved. After I came out of the closet, my work became much better than it ever was. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that when you're living more honestly and you have less to hide, it opens you up with whatever your work is. Like if you're an accountant, I think you will be the best accountant you can be if you're open and you're not hiding any secrets. I definitely think that the experience of living in America for the past 32 years has shaped my parents' ability to come to terms with the fact that I'm however, I also hear about, people in Iran, like accepting their kids. I don't know what life is like there. I do know that here they had more examples of successful out queer people, and that it wasn't, I think the biggest fear that, I'll speak for my family and not other families, but that my family had, was that I would be living a second class life. That they brought me to America so that I had like any educational opportunity I want, as a woman, that I could do anything that was possible, and that I was choosing to live as a second class citizen. And growing up, if someone was gay, it was really the kiss of death. It was really saying like, okay, the rest of their life is going to be complete shit. And especially the fact that I have the potential to love men and have been in successful, I mean, they ended, but they were loving relationships with men. They're like, why are you choosing this? You could exclusively date, you could fall in love with the man. Why wouldn't you choose to be normal and happy? But then once I proved that my life could be just as good, even better, with a woman by my side, it really turned them around. But also being in America, there are so many like famous lesbians. There are lots of successful women who live their lives with other women that they could point to and say, like, okay, I see you succeeding in life, and this isn't a kiss of death. I'm sure there are people who hate the film and are disgusted that I made it and embarrassed for me, but I don't think about them. And I'm sure like in the same respect that there are people out there who don't think being openly gay is disgusting. And I mean, actually, I don't assume that everyone who hates my film is a homophobe. But also, I'm putting them in the same category because I'm saying, like, I block that out of my head and I don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the past year I traveled a lot with the film, and when it was like both times I went to Australia twice, to Melbourne and then to Sydney a few months later. And both times there were like huge groups of Iranians, and one of them always had something negative to say, but it was really nitpicky. Like they'd all be like, congratulations. And then one guy looked at me and he was like, there wasn't enough Farsi. And I was like, why? Oh, first he said like, why wasn't there more Farsi? And I was like, no, I cast and I couldn't find an Iranian actress that I wanted to cast. I ended up casting a woman who doesn't speak Farsi. I changed the dialogue to suit her. You know, you shoot with what you have at your disposal. And I agree. I think it would be cool if there was more Farsi, and it didn't happen. Like a woman stood up in an audience once and said, like, why didn't you talk more about how taboo it is to be bisexual? And I was like, well, that's not what this film is about. You should go make a film that's about that, because it's a worthy subject matter. Well, I never like heard any stereotypes about Iranians because I never heard anything about Iranians. Like I grew up feeling like I was the only Iranian in the world. Like every time I walk down the street, and if I ever, it's very rare that this happens, but I'm in LA right now, so it's happened more often. And like, if I hear someone speaking Farsi, it's like I'm like, grandma, like instantly I feel like they must be a family member of mine because it's so rare. And I never heard stereotypes, but one time someone interviewed me and they said like, why did you choose this like crude stereotype for your Nowruz scene? And I honestly was just like poking fun at the world I come from. I was raised in a small community of Iranians in New Jersey. I mean, I was in New York State, but we drove into New Jersey for all the parties, and everyone was very glamorous, and it was always, you know, very opulent and beautiful. And, you know, I know that it's like every community and also it's like expats, like every group that finds each other, they create their own world. So this is the world that I come from and I was raised in. And I felt like to me, that's what it was to be Iranian, very specifically. But someone growing up in Paris, yeah, is going to have a different experience of being Iranian. And I don't know. I don't even hear these stereotypes. So I've never had exposure to preconceived notions of what it is to be Iranian, with the exception of like one episode of South Park where they made fun of Iranians, and it was so funny to me because it was true. Like they were like, oh, all the Iranians retreated to go buy tacky Gucci sunglasses that only they would think were cool. And that is my experience of a lot of Iranians. But you'd actually know that's a stereotype of LA Iranians, actually. That's not true of the people I know. I was just saying that growing up in New York, there is a stereotype of what Iranians in LA are like. And it's exactly what you see on this reality show called The Shahs of Sunset. I mean, that was very much the impression I had of it. But also, I never lived in LA. I never had any Iranian friends in LA. So it's something that I saw from afar. The film was definitely not trying to make fun of that. The film was a specific commentary on the world that I knew, limited to where I grew up. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Desiree, for this interview.
Thank you so much.